SwayamPrabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone. So we are in the second segment of understanding the design process for logo, right? And here with me is Utkarsh from Masters. And again, we had a discussion. We had a brief about this project, which we collaboratively seek into how to design it, right? And with this, we'll also see how Utkarsh has also taken some of the key considerations in defining the identity of that particular brand. Hello, Utkarsh, welcome.
Hi all.
Yeah.
Hi, hello sir.
Hi. So, Utkarsh, can you explain us what is this brand about? What is the name? What they do, and how the brief came?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Suzuki was doing a competition. I'll first give you a background, how this started. So, I'm new to design. I'm from an architecture background, but logo design and brand identity, especially, was a very new realm for me. And this project came around 2024 in January. And at the same time, I was doing a course under Dr. Saurav on brand and brand identity. So I was learning a lot, but I gave myself a challenge that okay, this competition is coming, might as well take a part in it and see implement the learnings which I'm learning at the moment.
True.
So Next Bharat is an initiative by Suzuki. I will say Suzuki Motors, the Japan one, the Suzuki Japan, and it's a collaboration between Japan and India to empower grassroots innovators and people. So it's all about grass level innovations as well as giving them they are basically, so Next Bharat will play a venture capitalist role here. They'll provide fundings and all that. So that's why they wanted to make a mark now. And so the brief encompassed of all these things, where how important a role of logo will play in a community building, and that should be seen basically. So community was one of the main keywords from there.
Okay. So we'll start the process now, phase by phase, and this is the logo which was finalized, and we'll also come to the point of how it was finalized. So as you said, Next Bharat is a Suzuki initiative. So we have a strong collaboration with Japanese organization and universities, and one of it is Suzuki, which is set up here, one of the segment in IIT Hyderabad. And with this again, you can see how the brief of the competition was given, and Utkarsh has taken the lead role of initiating the overall understanding of that particular brand and what kind of brief, how you associate, how do you create relationship with that particular brief. And you can see the primary thing, like I think you had a meeting with also them to understand
Yeah.
what is the, so can you explain us what was the meeting about?
So the competition duration is 1 month. So understanding that it's a very fast-paced logo design, competition, as well as so we had meetings in 3 phases. So first was first submission, and then the meetings were scheduled afterwards.
Yes.
So in the first phase, they wanted to shortlist people, not just from India. There were people taking part from Japan as well. Together they had to come up with, or rather not together, but they have to submit their ideas, and then on the basis of that, top 20 shortlists were done. And then a meeting just after the shortlist was, so it was basically you work and have a meeting with the clients, which are the CEOs and all. And also I was being in constant touch with Dr. Saurav as well, because he was also mentoring me from the way that how this should be happening. Because after a point, the CEOs also are there as a client, right? But I'm also getting mentored by him as a design because I'm also new. I don't know like what all things should be required. So he was also mentoring me and keep pushing me like, this is what you need to go or what you need to achieve. Even if they don't know, you need to educate them.
True.
Yeah.
And I think with that meeting, definitely some concepts got
Yeah.
selected.
Yeah.
So can you explain us what are the preliminary concepts, and after that which one got selected, and how you refine this in terms of ideation? We are still in the process of ideation. Again, I am emphasizing it. It's not finalized. Again, ideation is very, very important to build up the concept. And I would request all of you, when you're designing any kind of logo, try to start with pen and paper. This is the first thing you can do, because that will help you to build relationship with the brand or any kind of concepts we are trying to address, especially the brief which you are trying to address. Okay. And I think Utkarsh has done a good job in terms of addressing the overall thing, and he will try to explain you what are the initial phase and how he have tried to achieve those things. Yes, Utkarsh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, before moving here, in the brief, it was very clearly mentioned that you have to get inspired by ginkgo leaf. Now, ginkgo leaf is a leaf which resembles resilience and longevity. So I started basically penning down all these keywords for me. So now ginkgo leaf represents resilience, growth, and longevity. And then I started abstracting the leaf into its basic anatomy, like what all can I derive out of it. So all these things. So like a heart, how can this be a heart? So right now I'm trying to connect it to also the community thing. Like, that's always in the back of my mind. And like I write it, that's why, like, on the side as well. Like ginkgo leaf represents like, longevity, resilience. What all other things do I need to have if it is a venture capitalist firm, but for the grassroots level? So it needs to have a social impact. It needs to showcase maybe innovation, entrepreneurship should be showcased. So how can like I'm asking these questions to myself, like how to showcase social impact in it. So these are basically pointers for myself, but I feel that these are very important in the design process. So like circles overlapping or humans. What if I showcase humans? Now, because I have to also take into consideration that I cannot abstract my logo too much, because my end users, because they are the grassroots people, there should be some sort of resemblance or some sort of direct interpretation towards it. So yeah.
So I think this is where again you have to also break down sometimes. Sometimes you may get stuck in terms of any kind of form or anatomy you are choosing. You have to also think like how others will perceive. This is very, very important. The image can be abstract, it's fine. Sometimes you don't have to correlate directly. But if you are trying to create a relationship in terms of visual, somewhere or the other you have to also consider how people will perceive. And this is where Utkarsh is trying to address, like again, the essence of the ginkgo leaf and how the things can be associated in terms of community representation. And there you can see there are multiple explorations, and I'm definitely, when we discuss, there are more, but this is for the sake of the presentation. Again, this is very important, so your iteration shouldn't stop. So again, till the point when you are satisfied, there's also a chance of refinement. So it's not like you are satisfied and you have stopped there. There's always an opportunity to refine, and if you can do that, that's much better, because you will know how this is going to project. And this is a way how you can address any kind of logo design, because the iteration becomes a very whole important thing in terms of any kind of form finalization. And here you can see Utkarsh has tried to do the idea of form finalization with multiple keywords, form representation, the variation of that form, right? And with this, tell us, how did you conclude the overall finalization?
So now, because I was also first, doing in terms of typefaces. So as you already know, that a logo is a combination of a logo typeface as well as a logo mark, right? So in my case, because my logo mark, if I'm looking from a community perspective, from a very grassroots level, so for me, I was focusing more on the logo mark towards the end of it.
We also say it as a brand mark.
Yeah.
What Utkarsh is trying to say is, like in the previous discussion with Manasi, we have also mentioned about how brand mark can be important integral part of the brand, right? And similarly, the idea of logo typeface, right? That when you say typeface, it becomes again logo type or word mark. Okay, so here it's a combination of both, where you are using the brand mark and the logo type. And Utkarsh has explored how even the logo type can create meaning which is associated to the brand. Yes.
Yeah. So, like here, I was like trying to, capture the essence of a very minimalistic ginkgo leaf. But what if the other parts were like two hands aiding the growth in all those things? Then, the other similar on color basis and all that. Then I started delving more into, say, like when I wrote these keywords, they helped me in a way because now I can, limit my scope because or give myself a direction. Then I started deriving it in terms of a human. What if it can look like a human? So that's how I started working on my logo. So again, then refining it, I took it to Illustrator, and this is basically Illustrator is a tool for me where I was designing a whole thing, because doing it on paper gives you an idea, but now when you are making it in refined a logo, which you have to end of the end deliver, it was very important for me that how it is going to happen, because now proportions will play a very important role. So I started deriving the ginkgo leaf from a simple circle, and then to make it look like a human, what I ask myself, what if I just stretch the tail of the ginkgo leaf to make it look like a human, and then softening the corners to have a more approachable meaning. Then suddenly, like, it struck me that because I have to showcase innovation in different directions, entrepreneurship, so, and a community building. A best way is like repetition is a like it's we follow it in design as one of the.
So what Utkarsh is trying to say is, like as a part of principles of design, we have discussed in the previous session, and you can see how the basic. So if you see, we are talking about the fundamentals of design here. So you can see contrast here, right? You can see repetition here, right? And there is also a sense of I would say uniformity, and that uniformity is attained by using the repeated elements. Okay, and this is where Utkarsh has tried to explore different variations with that, and with this he's also trying to analyze how it feels. And this is very, very important. So when you are exploring things, parallel you have to also question, like, if I'm changing some elements, does it changing the overall narrative? And I think Utkarsh have went through this different phase, and he have used these variations, right? And you can see how he's associating the typeface and the brand mark to club together and to see whether it connects or not. And with this, I think definitely there are some variations we had considered.
Yes.
And even from the client, there were some suggestions which we took into consideration. And Utkarsh will also say, explain us how those variations created an impact in the overall design.
So in this, I was basically explaining or using my knowledge or learnings from the course which I got, like using implying Gestalt principles of figure and background. So I was trying to go for a blooming flower. That's why the yellow was there. It's a fresh color, and the gradient I was trying to first use for a progressive meaning, that it's a progressing thing. It's a loading, or it's something which is coming up. So this was my take on it. This is the end of the first stage. Now when the first stage ended, I fortunately got selected in the top 20, and then there was a reflection on the first stage. So I got feedback from the client that maybe it is looking a bit unbalanced, and there's too much they just giving out their feelings, right? They cannot directly go into the technical part of it. But when I went to Dr. Saurav, so he mentioned out that why is it feeling that way, because I'm also new to it, so he's looking from a different perspective altogether. So he did one thing. He directly took the printout of my logo, and he said, do you think that gradient will work on this? So he made me realize that the practical application on which my logo will be used will be much more on a document or on a very normal printer. Whereas a gradient, a color which we see in Instagram and all that, is usually used for a digital platform where the colors can be, easily read. While on the printer, on a physical printout, the colors might, if they, will vary. It won't work properly.
So again, this is an important segment which Utkarsh has highlight, and this I even practice personally. So when you are designing any kind of logo, you have to be also very much careful that will it be consistent in any platforms, which you have also discussed previously. So here again, since we are again coming to that point, you have to also understand whether the gradient will be beneficial for such kind of print and publication. You may utilize gradient, it's nothing wrong in it, but it will work. Will it work in the same way? Will it be there any kind of difference when you print it in different printers? And there are high chances every printers produce different set of colors, and there's an inclination towards variation of that particular logo. So for safety, we designers always tend to seek for logos which are flat in color without using multiple gradients. And but again, the idea of gradient will work since we discuss in the digital platform. So if you see Instagram logo, it's purely gradient, right? So because primarily the Instagram works in the digital space, and people rarely use any kind of print and publication process in the name of Instagram. But if you see any other brands like Nike, Adidas, they are quite flat, direct, because they are going to print in different medium, especially print and publish, be it a shoe, be it a t-shirt. So for there to create a consistency, the gradient will never work, okay? Because the printing can happen in different warehouse, right? And because of the machine variations, there might be differences in terms of depiction. So again, it's a very, I would say, cost-effective way. So if you're addressing gradient to cater to a similar way of representation, you may have to go for a Pantone representation, which will be quite costly compared to the normal representation. Again, if you go for a flat color, you are not bordered, because if it's black, it will come out as a black. If it's orange, it will come out as an orange. So you don't have to worry, and it becomes a very cost-effective way for the client also to consider. Again, coming to this discussion, you have to also understand to what extent client is going to utilize the brand. If it's cost-effective, right, it will definitely benefit them, and it also helps the environment. So you as a designer, sometimes, as we discuss a lot in terms of how your designs can impact the environment, is another segment. Okay, so this is where Utkarsh have taken a step, like we both discussed, like, let it be without gradient, because this has a better use in terms of print and publication, and it will definitely be utilized. And with that, definitely Utkarsh have taken that step of changing it to a flat representation, and you can see now in the next
So after that, I'll take the liberty to also explain what other things Dr. Saurav had pointed out after this. So once we took the printout, he also mentioned that your logo is not going to be of the same size every time. It needs to have scalability of what if it's going to be used as a stamp and all those things. So if you don't have space in between your petals, I'll say these as petals at the moment of the flower. So if you don't have enough space, so what problem may it have? Also, one of the suggestions which the client had made at that time was, can we remove the heads? So now it was so I was trying to push for the heads to make it a more you know
Human-centric.
direct, human centric approach, or a very direct approach for the community people. But now the client is asking me to make it a bit more abstract.
Yeah, so in fact, this helped us also from the technical perspective,
Yeah.
because if you see this logo, so typically when you go for print, right, there are high chances if the elements are close to each other, it will bleed. So what it bleed is means like you can see a thin line here, right? This will get merge each other, and if things are printed in a very small scale, definitely it will merge. Then the essence of the logo will disappear. And that's why in logo design we have discussed how scaling plays an important role. So you have to scale it up, scale it down, just to understand whether the logo retains its anatomy or not. And here Utkarsh has rightfully done it based on the feedback and all. We have considered and we have reiterated the idea. And this is where we have like almost finalized the whole representation. Yes. We'll move to next in terms of color, right? And you can see how the color palette has been defined. Again, it's not random. Utkarsh will tell you why such kind of colors has taken into consideration. Yes, Utkarsh.
So now the color, according to the client feedback as well, because they wanted, they were looking for next billion users. So the vision which the company had was a very fresh approach towards these venture capitalists, but for a grassroots level. So what are the kind of colors which can be used for it? Now freshness, I was trying to have freshness as a say a synonym of the new dawn. That's why these are the words which I am giving to the color. That it's a new dawn approach. It's a comforting warmth or fresh growth, or something as trust. So now trust is very important in this, right? Like what the company's mission is. So all these colors which are there, they were very handpicked from a lot of, as Sir was also mentioning, we opened a Pantone catalog during that time. And we were handpicking that, yes, this color feels like this. So as a designer, you have to be like, you work on the feelings as well.
So in our previous discussion, again, this is a very important segment which Utkarsh has highlighted, is the feel. So whenever you are designing any brand, right, it's an impression you are taking into consideration with the overall representation. But when you see any kind of visual representation, it's always about the feeling. And that's why some logos become successful, because it feels good about it. You tend to connect with the feeling. And initially, if I'm a consumer, if Utkarsh is a consumer, if you see any kind of brand logo, you will go with the feeling of that logo. It's not about it, because you haven't experienced the product as of now. But if the logo feels right, you will tend to go and experience that product. And that's why visual branding, especially identity design and logo, plays an important role in creating that essence of that brand. And this is where we designer take lots and lots of time to create that. And those are the elements which we are talking about. It can be in terms of concept development, it can be in terms of form, it can be how you're projecting the overall representation, the choice of color. Again, color is associated with emotion, so colors also become a part of the representation when you try to address. And this is where, if you see most of the food brands, they come up with a warm palette. And this is where again we are communicating in terms of feeling, because when we see warm colors, it's always associated to food, appetite, and it feels good about it. And that's why if you see KFC, right, any food brands you can name, and most of the McDonald's, all have a better warm palette. And this is again connected to the idea of how we feel about it. And here Utkarsh has talked about the feeling, and primarily you can see how we have again named it to connect, to catalyze the emotion to that particular brand in a more stronger representation. And with this finalization, definitely the idea of explorations come, the combination come, the relationships come. And Utkarsh have taken different segments here. Again, Suzuki as a brand, they tend to use blue because it's associated to trust and all. And you can see how the blue has been taken into consideration. Again, in terms of combining all the relationship with that particular name, the brand and the brand mark. Yes, Utkarsh, can you explain how you have finalized the
Yeah.
whole presentation now?
So now this was my end of stage 2 deliverable. So now the feedback which I got was very interesting from the client. They first of all say that it's okay, we can remove the emphasis of Suzuki at the moment because it's more featured on Next Bharat. But they said that your petals now are looking more like nails. So it was a very interesting, perspective because I'm looking it from one way. They are also looking from a very different way. So they are saying your petals are becoming more rigid. So can you go on reducing the petals? So these were the feedbacks which
I
I'm getting.
recall that. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah.
So with that, I think we have also reconsidered how to take into those considerations in refining the
Yes.
feedback, right?
Yeah.
And you can see how again the typeface has taken into considerations and all. And now you can see there's a strong variations from how we have started,
Yeah.
right? This was the starting point. And to take into consideration, see, Utkarsh again, he has taken the feedback from the client such that we are in the same page. So we as a designer sometimes we feel ki this might be working or this, but if the client doesn't feel or connect with that, sometimes you have to also understand from their perspective because they have also seen the world in different segments. Definitely their experience will help you to refine the work, and sometimes as a designer you can take their consideration if you are quite confident that okay, whatever they have suggested makes sense. But there may be cases where you feel this is so absurd that it will never work. So based on your experience, you can decide that. So if you feel that, you can also nudge them, you can also navigate them, you can also guide them saying this is how it will look and these are the impacts associated with such kind of design. Now, if the client is unable to process, when they see your justification in visual, definitely they will incline with your idea. In this case, we as a designer felt, it has some kind of connection what they are trying to do. And with this, definitely we have tried to reduce the anatomy of the elongation. And this is where you can see how the oval anatomy is changing gradually. And with that, again, we have tried to see what kind of typeface we
Typeface
have
will go for.
we are taken into consideration. As we have talked in the previous discussion with Manasi, how typeface plays an important role in terms of creating the overall brand relationship with the overall feel of that brand, right? Here again, we have taken some kind of geometric and variations of that typeface, right? Can you explain us what the typeface, why you have chosen such kind of typeface?
So again, I was, going for the feel now. So I'm, because I'm also new to this. Now I have imbibed that whatever the final deliverable will be, now it has to be more feel based. That it should feel that yes, this brand is friendly, this brand is approachable. Because I'm now looking from the grassroots level users' perspective. Why will they come to them? So the field told me that it has to be a friendly brand, it has to be an approachable brand. So that's why, and I was looking more on that, what are the next Bharat's alphabets. So what are the uniqueness in these alphabets if I see from a typeface way. So E seemed to be very friendly to me, and new.
It has a sense of calligraphy. Again,
Yes.
when you combine the geometry with some kind of curls or curve, somewhere they added the idea of hand drawn, like something humanly addressed is being there rather than strict geometric forms. And here Utkarsh has taken the benefit of using that essence of E, which has elements of like calligraphic essence where you see the flow getting curled in a very humanistic way. And this definitely speaks what he wants. Okay, so this is where he was looking for, like, how do you create some kind of welcomeness, friendly approach. And when you see something which is curved with hands, somewhere or the other you will associate with some humanistic representation. And that's why calligraphy has always a human touch, like it feels very organic in nature, calligraphy, artwork, or illustrations, right? And this has some kind of essence to that. And with this, we have finalized this typeface,
Yeah.
right? Again, we have looked into what are the variations. So when you seek for any kind of typeface, we also look for the variations. Yeah, so we were talking about how the typeface plays an important role with Utkarsh and how he have taken into consideration in terms of how the anatomy of E can has a more welcome nature. So with this again, we were also considering how we have finalized, and we were talking about how the typeface, if the font family is bigger, it becomes more, I would say, usable for the client to utilize the overall essence of the typeface in different segments, different processes, or like scenarios. And with this, yeah, definitely he have taken how the overall brand will look. These are again small part of collaterals which he have taken into consideration. So there are badge, there are floral expansions, right, t-shirts, which are part of the company. This company demands such kind of collaterals, and which he have looked into and explored in that way. I feel they accepted the collaterals
Yes.
happily, right?
Yeah.
And with this, you can see this is the final representation, and here Utkarsh also felt some interesting depiction and a huge variations from the initial and this, where he will try to explain you why it feels in that way. Yeah.
So, as we were explaining about, that small move, why it was very important. So, before, lessening the number of petal definitely helped, but what helped more than that was, that small move, instead of elongating, now I'm pushing it upwards. So, what it did to the whole anatomy was something really, which, very moving for me. So now I was looking at from that ginkgo leaf is a part of Japan's culture. How can I imbibe Indian culture into this? So if you see this part, the background part,
Negative space.
the negative space, that is a symbolic of that onion dome which is there. So just that curve of it, very small abstraction of that onion dome, helped me make it more Indianized, and now it looks more like something which the grassroots level can people can definitely they can directly identify, yes, this is an Indian brand.
Feeling.
So that feeling was very important for me to achieve. I think that was something which they also pointed out from their end.
True, and I think the overall journey was quite interesting for us to
Yeah.
take how the it's a actually, if you see, it's a fusion between both Japanese and Indian culture, and Utkarsh has justified and in both the segments, if you see, because the client from Japan has agreed, and the people from India are being able to associate, and this is where you have to consider both the context and how the idea of both the community and the culture has been infused within one representation. Again, their intent is not to show that directly, but in an abstract way, and which we were looking into in that direction. Definitely, if they would have given us the brief saying we want to highlight there is a Japanese direct representation and Indian collaboration, then the overall anatomy will be changing. Okay, but the intent here is like there should be a subtle representation of Japanese, where Japanese people, delegates associated to Next Bharat can connect, and now how Indians, people who are associated to Indian culture and all, like those who know that, has some kind of connection in terms of visual representation. And this is where the complexity of doing such kind of logo becomes very important, because you are not just following one rule, you are also considering both the segment and you are balancing it. And balancing such kind of things is a very huge task, and you have to go through multiple observations and also inputs from your stakeholders, your clients, right? And as I said in the previous segment also, this is very important, where you as a designer take the benefit of their experience, so you take them as a part of the design process, and that will ease up the overall flow, the overall understanding of how to proceed and what kind of output can be generated in a collaborative manner. And with this, definitely Utkarsh have finalized, and his design is now being utilized in the overall websites, different segments. And I'm pretty sure Utkarsh has learned something, and he would definitely like to share what are the key learnings he have went through while doing this. Yes, Utkarsh.
So, as you all know now, that this was one of the first projects. So that's why for me it was that whatever we are learning, we have to showcase that and put it in a right way and a justified way. And towards the end of it, and during the beginning, I realized that what importance a iteration plays into picture, and how important are feedbacks. If we are doing only a thing in one direction or in one perspective, you may just may not end up where you could have been if with the feedbacks. So feedbacks plays a lot of importance, even and from anyone, from that matter of fact. Not just with your mentors, but also my friends also were giving me feedbacks time by time, during the lunch hours and all that. And because it was a very fast paced project, 1 month is a very short duration of time to complete this. And one very important thing which I realized, that small changes, a minimalistic approach, and giving emphasis on space, balancing space and small minimalistic approaches can do a lot of wonders. So that is one very key thing which I
Yeah,
take.
I agree with Utkarsh, and I think you all have got what are the key things you have to consider. And from Utkarsh's perspective, how you have to be very much meticulous about what you are trying to address, how you are addressing it, right? How it's reflecting it. You have to also compare it. Like previously, you have done it in this way. Is it creating a huge difference in terms of usability, readability, and understanding the feel of that brand? And yeah, with this, definitely it came out nice and we were successful in addressing the idea. Sometimes you may struggle, but it's fine. You have to also understand what are the key things what the client is trying to address and how you are trying to address from your designer's knowledge, right? And I would like to thank now Utkarsh for joining us for the small discussions we had on understanding how to create an identity and what are the process we need to consider as a designer. And Utkarsh have beautifully shown us how we have taken different segments and how it was a gradual project. It's not like it's suddenly they have told us and we have addressed it. So we are also collaborating with them, understanding their perspective, and we are making small changes. And that changes has been refined to such a point that now people are getting both the essence of Indian and Japanese elements, and now it has been utilized and it's purely functional logo. As I said, if you're designing a logo, it should be functional in nature. What I meant is, like, if you scale it down, if you scale it in a bigger size, it should feel the essence of the brand should feel consistent, and the idea of legibility should be maintained. So if you're reducing the smaller, this is a beautiful case where we have used dot as a part of the early representation, and because there the gap was less, right, it was bleeding, so we did a taste print again. Utkarsh also have highlight about how important is taste print, right? So when you're designing a logo, it's very important to taste it, to check whether the colors are consistent, the overall anatomy feels good in a real life environment, because in digital space when you are working, you feel like you are confined with that small screen, and when you print it, you will get exposed to the natural environment, and that will change multiple perspective if you are sensitive about it. And this is where we as a designer practice a lot. We do test prints a lot just to understand how it feels. Again, we are using the word carefully, the word feel. So it's about feeling. And now with this, I definitely would like to thank Utkarsh for navigating us of the different segments. Thank you so much. In the next segment, we'll talk about the guidelines now. So this is one part. So
Yeah.
definitely Utkarsh has also done guidelines. Manasi has also done some kind of guidelines, because now we are giving back this overall thing to the client. So this is very important, because the way, the intent you have addressed the problem, right, should be well addressed when it's getting publicized, right? So when you're publishing things, your guidelines plays an important role in the consistency of that representation. And this is where you designer has to take that initiative. So client might not ask you, sometimes they might, because they might not be aware about it, right? But guidelines plays an important role in being the brand being consistent, because you are envisioning the overall brand, right, in different segments. Say for if it's going to be printed in a horizontal version, right, how the layout will be. If it's going to be in a minimal representation, will it be both the text or the brand mark, or it will be just the brand mark? So do's and don'ts, what to do. You cannot elongate, you cannot stretch like the logo too much, right, which will hamper the overall anatomy. So Utkarsh has done it, like Manasi has also done it. So we'll discuss one of the brand guidelines in the upcoming session. With this, we'll conclude. Thank you, Utkarsh, for
Thank you,
coming.
sir.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you so much. So, as we had a very good discussion upon two of the case studies by by Manasi and one by Utkarsh. So now we are diving into the another segment of creating branding, right, guidelines, where you give it to the client such that the consistency of the brand is maintained irrespectively you are using different platforms or usage, right? So you can see here, these are some of the things which you have taken into consideration. So overall the narrative of the brand, right, the visual identity and the brand collaterals, and these are things which we will take into consideration. So if you see the brand narrative, who we are, so we have discussed in the previous segments, right, what the brand is about, what does it do, right? And as you see here, Yogi Raj is offering travel services, right, all across India, with the idea of spiritual connection for the elderlies, right? And then what is the vision, right, what is the intent, how it, so you as a designer also take those, so based on your stakeholder or your client interview, you can take this into consideration in terms of how you want to define that, what should be the essence of the brand, what should be the brand seek into. And with that, there are different segments which are associated to brand, and how they take care of those things, so such that this representation is maintained. Even if a new employee comes, if they go through this overall brand narrative, like the guidelines, somewhere or the other they will try to align with the idea of how the brand has been represented. So again, this is the overall idea, the brief of the brand, like what does it believe, what does it want to practice, right? What community services they want to provide, and how they want to incline for the sustainable growth of the company. So with this, again, the idea of tagline also come into play. So when you design any kind of logo, so most of the brand seek for some kind of taglines. So if you see Nike, just do it, right? So those kind of taglines can be addressed. And here you can see the primary tagline is travel knows no boundaries was taken into consideration. Again, so there are different segments where you can see the idea of one line description, again Yogiras, where your travel experiences are in line with comfort, affordability, and everlasting memories. So these are some description when you design a website or Instagram page. This will be always projected, and it will be beneficial for the brand to project it in the right way, and there will be a consistency in defining that. So everybody who are doing any kind of promotion or marketing can add this informations to their projection, and which is in line with the overall idea of the particular brand. So if you see the visual identity, this is what we have finalized, as Manasi was talking about how it has impacted the overall representation, why such kind of sensory font has been taken into consideration, right, and how the overall representation now makes sense. So this is one of the layout which you can see, right, and how the overall representation is connected with the feel of the brand, right? And this is where we discuss about the logo, how it comes, what kind of symbolism it takes, right, and how it has a sense of dynamic representation of travel. And so you can see the arrow, how it's moving towards upwards. And overall theme, right, so if you see the palette, what are the color considerations the brand take into consideration such that it's maintained in the overall brand promotion or projection. Next come what are these size of prints, right? How the idea of prints can be taken into consideration. These are some of the sizes, right? Minimum print size, what should be, maximum print size, what should be, right? So these are the things which you can take into consideration. Not necessary every time you have to add this, but yeah, if you can add those things, the idea of consistency will remain, right? It helps you to maintain the overall brand essence, right? And it totally depends on the client how it utilizes, but yeah, as a designer, it's your job to give them. And if they are addressing it the way you are giving it, definitely the overall representation of the brand consistency will be followed. I am talking in terms of visual representation. Okay, so visually the idea of consistency of the brand representation will be followed, and that's why you can see in different segments. So if you are in Nike store or Apple store, the consistency of the space design is always being maintained, right? The way how the space has been arranged, the way how the color of the space has been taken into consideration, theme. So this is where again the idea of branding again comes into play. And you can see how with the logo how the representation can be taken into consideration, what are the layouts, right? Different segments, how the positioning are taken into consideration, the spacing, which we have also discussed previously, how this can also help people who are using different platforms, right? So when you are creating a space, definitely you will be using different ways of projecting the brand, and how the spacing will play important role in projecting that in a large scale, be it a small scale or a large scale, how it will look. So overall consistency in terms of the brand mark and the typeface will be maintained irrespective of any kind of platform. So yeah, so how the depiction of the brand, you can see clearly here how there are 2-3 variants of it, and these variants are coming from the theme color which we have taken into consideration. So with this, again, this is another segment. This is a vertical placement. So in the previous placement, it is a horizontal placement, right? And here the overall placement is vertical, where the brand mark is in the top and the typeface is in the lower segment. So here you can see it's a horizontal, where the brand marks is on the same horizontal line, right? So there are two variations you can see. So typically, if we are designing something, we have to also consider what kind of variants you are providing and how it will look and where it will be placed. Yeah, so this is the one, and how again the sizing plays an important role, how it's getting impacted, right? And with this, again, you can see different ways of spacing, right? And how to be consistent, what are the spacing sizes you can take into consider. So again, these are, so finally you can see the idea of favicons. So icons, especially when if you're creating an app, how it will look, what are the representation, right? What are the dynamic way you can take into consideration. And these are some of the variants. And again, if you see, the essence of the brand is being maintained in terms of the representing the logo irrespective of the background form, right? So you can see that. So here what you have to do, what you have not to do. So these are the things where you can also navigate your client, saying key things which are not won't go properly is some of the things which you have to look into. So here you can see the overall composition is compressed, and it doesn't go with the overall aesthetic, the feel of the logo. And here you can see again the overall representation is suddenly elongated and compressed. Again, there are some kind of transparency, the background has been used, the idea of legibility is missing. The choice of the color here, again, it's totally not related to the brand. Use of gradient suddenly abruptly in all typeface, right, along with the form, doesn't go. The way how the letter space has been taken into consideration, right, the kerning of this typeface is not good, so the spacing is low. So while addressing this brand to maintain the overall essence, this thing shouldn't be considered, right? Even here some of the segments which are shown, right, some are tilted, some are, again, the outline is there, again the logo flag has been reversed, right? Again, the one side the overall logo is black and the other is the overall colors. The spacing between the typeface, again the choice of typeface is totally different. Again, your typeface is more emphasis than the brand mark, right? So again, this also impact the overall representation, and these are the things which not need to be considered. So when you are designing something, when you are creating any kind of logo, it is very essential for you to give such kind of do not do kind of thing, like do things which will impact the brand in a negative manner. So this is where you can also take consideration of such kind of things, and if you can highlight it in detail, it's much better, because these are the things which they are not going to do, even though they might intend initially, but when they see these things, they will restrict themselves from doing or addressing things, such kind of things which may create a different impression of the brand. So yeah, so these are some of the color palettes which are part of this theme, and you can see there are naming specific. So Rani Gulabi, Bhagwan Narangi. So these are the localizations of such kind of naming, where people can connect with the common representation. So those again, how the color choice can be taken into consideration in the name of contrast, right? So here in a preliminary phase, you can see how the way the color combination is working, and here again, if you see the color choice in terms of contrast is being diminished. So the way how you see contrasting compositions and the idea of combinations, right, in this overall representation, you can also provide that. Yeah, again the font, right? Again, what kind of fonts of the font variations are taken into consideration, right? So Nexa is the font which is taken into consideration, and with that, how it looks, right? And again, there is another secondary typography, Leto, for like different uses. Maybe it can be used as a part of the overall content, right? Maybe the header comes, or the typeface comes in this, right? And the overall main content is coming in this way. So yeah, with this again, the overall strategy and what kind of like the idea of representing the brand can be projected. So this is some of the representation which are taking into idea of the feel of that particular brand. So with this again, we have talked in the previous discussion how collaterals are also important. So it's suggested for you. This is just a mock-up, but when you're giving this to your client, make sure it's editable, right? So if you're giving a letterhead, so I should be I should be ready to write or type over it. So you can also give this. So if you're giving any kind of visiting card, provide them the raw files which they can easily print and come up with the like different variations based on the names and the ID informations, right? So again, these are some of the things which you have to also consider in terms of ID, iCard design, which caters the similar brand elements, right? So if you see here, the brand elements has been taken, the color choice has been taken into consideration, such that there is a uniformity in the overall collaterals. Yeah, so brochure we have talked about. So this is one of the examples which you can see, and that will totally depend or vary if the client want more content towards it. But yeah, as a designer, you can also suggest them some of the guidelines which they can consider. So if you can see, the lines has been consistently flowing about it. So this is one of the way how you can also look into how the brand can be depicted in a much better way. Yes, so in terms of wearables, again, we have discussed this previously, but yeah, it's you as a designer can also definitely suggest them. This is the way you can also proceed, right? And how this can also have a better visual relationship with the other elements of the brand. As we discussed, some of the way how you can promote the layouts, the grids, how you can address, right? So these are some of the things which you can look into on how the promotional campaign can be also taken into consideration. So travel knows no boundaries. Again, these are part of the tagline which is from Yogiraj, and you can see how it's connected now. Yeah, so how the banner can be also taken into consideration, and how it's more contextual. If you see, all the collaterals are quite contextual to the brand, and this is where I would request all of the designers who are seeking in terms of graphic design, and also when you are creating any kind of mockups or collaterals, make sure it's associated with the brand. Don't randomly put any kind of mockups which are available in the internet which are totally irrelevant to the brand representation. So if you can see, all the collaterals are associated, and it also gives us a vision, right? How do we see the particular brand, and how it will look or feel about that particular space, within that space, right? So yeah, since it's a traveling app and there are multiple traveling solution, right? So identity design. So the idea of application, how it will look, right? What are the things you can take into consideration come into play. And finally, how do you promote within the social media? What are the things, key elements you are taking into consideration, which we have discussed previously, but I'm highlighting this can be also part of your overall brand guidelines, and that will help anybody who are jumping into replicating the idea, right, for the purpose of the brand requirement. They can take a reference and they can proceed with that. Yeah, so again, this is the conclusion. So how the way of like branding can be also bilingual in nature. So you can see how the use of Devanagari script has been part of it. Based on the context and scenario, you can use both the typeface. One is the English version and one is the Devanagari Hindi version of it. So as we have discussed with Manasi, so this was all done by Manasi, and you can see her more of the project which are available on Behance. And with this, we'll end this session of understanding the concept of design process. And we'll go through the slides now to understand much better what are the key points we need to consider in the in overall defining the overall the logo design process. And it will help you to recall like what are the things we have discussed and the things you can utilize while you are doing any kind of design. So here we are. We have discussed both the case studies by Manasi and Utkarsh, and I'm pretty sure you have got some better understanding on how to design logo. What are the things we have to take into consideration? So now if you see, if we compile the overall learnings, you can see the logo design process involves series of steps to create distinctive and meaningful logo that effectively represent brand's identity and values. So here's a streamlined guide to process, so which we have talked about. So primarily we talked about research and discovery. So what are the things, what are the brief we are getting, what are our approach, right? How we are discussing this with our clients, who can be the potential stakeholders who will be seeking for such kind of brands. And based on that, what are the newness you are trying to address, what kind of visual representation, what is the mission, right? How do the brand want to project themselves, right? What are the elements associated to the brand which can be quite meaningful if depicted visually. So these are the things we have seen in both the cases where they were taken into consideration, right? And that primarily happened with the discussion with the client, their requirement, the brief which are being generated based on the discussions and all, right? And then we designed the overall concept, like why we are doing this, what kind of things are necessary to depict this, and the overall requirement, basically what are the outputs you are going to address, how it's going to be related, which has the essence of the or the feel of that brand. So based on that understanding, as you can see, both of my students have done a thorough understanding in terms of what are the needs and requirement, and they started generating concept. Basically, in terms of pen and paper, as I have mentioned you, how pen and paper plays an important role in initial ideation, and that can be refined using tools like Illustrator, InDesign, right, to refine the overall anatomy. But initially, definitely you have to start with the idea of pen and paper, and with that you will create some kind of concept. And while you're exploring the concept, it shouldn't be limited. You can go multiple series of explorations, which is where till the point where you feel this seems to be quite connecting to the essence of the brand. So with that, again, we have looked into how those kind of refinements, since we have done the iterations and all, how those refinements were again transferred to the digital space for better visibility, to lose not to lose the overall essence, how the element of structure and clean representations are taken into consideration when the overall idea of the brand is being shifted to the digital medium, right? In terms of shape, understanding the flow, how the lines is being depicted, it's like how clean it can be, that it can be replicated in any domain or any platform, right? And then again, once the digital drafting has been done, you can see both Manasi and Utkarsh has went book went back to the client, showcasing this is the almost what they have visualized, and based on that feedback, right, once they have seen the tentative logo which has a feeling of the brand essence, what kind of feedback you are taking and how you're refining it is another segment of the logo design process. And then the finalization, once everything is sorted, you are addressing the refinement and you are finally finalizing it, is the major task here. Like what are the things you are going to project, everything will come now back to back. So with that finalization, as you can see, the delivery and the brand guide, so how you are presenting, what are the files you are giving. So you should consider all the raw files, all the versions of black and white versions, right, the colored version, what is the color template, right, brand guidelines which we were talking about, do's and don'ts, what is the ethos of the brand, what are the elements, how do you project that brand, what are the combinations of that particular representation. So everything will come under this umbrella. So this is a very important part because you are handing over the overall design to the client, and you have to make sure that the client receive it in a good way such that there is a brand consistency. So it comes from the idea of how you are giving the guidelines and what are the materials, raw files you are giving. So raw files can be in Illustrator, and how you are converting those raw files such that there is a better usability. Say for example, you are our logo is colored, so what about the black and white environment? So you should give the black version, the white version of the logo, right, the monotone version of that logo, so where they can utilize those things without hampering the overall essence. So you as a designer has to be very much conscious and sensitive enough to give them such kind of details. And with that, you can also see how mockups has been defined, right, how the implementations are being addressed. So mockups is a like preliminary phase where the brand can see themselves how it's going to happen. So when I say the word implementation, it's like how actually it's executed, right, you have to also go through that process, how it's being deployed in the market, right, what are the things you need to consider, is there any variations happening from the initial thought till the deployment to the market. So everything comes into play. So this phase we haven't disclosed it, but yeah, being a designer you have to also consider those things such that the brand essence, when discussed, when finalized, is being retained till the point it has been deployed. So with this, we are about to end this session, and I'm pretty sure with the intensive like discussions we had in this segment, definitely have made you clearer in terms of how you can design a logo, what are the things you should consider, how client plays an important role in terms of defining the overall visual branding, right, and how you as a designer should take them together to be part of the whole process. And I'm thankful for your time, and I thank you. With this I would like to end this session. I hope you have an overall understanding of the concept of visual branding and how identity design can be taken into consideration. What are the factors, what are the important points you need to consider, right? Thank you very much. Have a nice day.